Hello, church, and welcome to the pastor's update for Wednesday, June 3rd, 2020. In the movie Jerry Maguire, the principal character played by Tom Cruise has this moment of catharsis. As a sports agent, his whole career has been about talking fast and making money, getting all he can, right? But something happens in his life that shifts his whole perspective. And he finds himself in front of his computer in the wee hours, furiously typing out this manifesto. One that proposes fundamental changes in his way of being in the world and truly his whole company's way of doing business in the world with him. And it's a great movie. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to check it out. Well, these past few days and in this moment we're in right now, they feel like a manifesto moment. An awakening to seeing and being in our world that is different than how it has been. Especially we in white America, and me as a white male in this society. For too long, we have had the privilege of acting as if it's not our problem. As if there's nothing that can be done, as if the existence of things like racism and police brutality and systemic injustice, all these things there's things that they deal with, over there kind of thing. We didn't create the problem, we say. I'm not racist, we say. Well, our police don't behave that way, we say. And how many other things do we say? And our language too often, it can be seen as a way of dismissing the problem and even the experiences of people of color who face it every day. What a luxury it is to be people of privilege who get to choose what we see and don't see, to choose what experiences we validate and invalidate by our attention or our lack thereof. Today I went for a run for the first time in way too long, and I needed to breathe deeply. I needed to stretch myself. I wanted to feel solid ground beneath my feet. So I ran up to Bill Francis Drive near Bell Road, and I turned a right. I took a right to take it. Now, normally I stop where I get to the end of the pavement there, and I turn around. But today I kept going. And I followed this rutted dirt road into this then tangle of overgrown but still defined paths weaving along the railroad tracks. Now, sometimes I had to walk on the stones that were next to the railroad tracks themselves, but I always felt like I was walking on paths that so many people had walked before. And as I ambled along, I gotta tell you, I saw all these neighborhoods and these parts of Auburn that I'd never seen before, just never noticed. And it got me thinking, how many other places in my life have I stopped when the road isn't easy anymore? How many other places have I missed or avoided or just simply chosen not to see? Most of us are aware of George Floyd. Even if you haven't yet watched the video, we most likely know what happened there. But what about Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor? Do you know what happened to them in recent days and weeks? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to check it out. Part of what it means to be the church is to see and know and love those whose stories and bodies and lives are overlooked or beaten or devastated or pushed to the margins, to be a voice for the voiceless, as the Archbishop Oscar Romero once famously talked about and certainly lived, gave his life for. One of the most impactful moments of that Black Lives Matter protest that I participated in this past Saturday at the Auburn courthouse was the conversation that I had with the Auburn police chief, Ryan Kinnan. Far from hanging back and staying separate from the proceedings, he and his officers were mingling with the crowd the whole time. They were handing out water, and they were kneeling beside us. Near the end, I thanked him for his leadership and his example. And then he said something to me that I will never forget. He said, I became a police officer so that I could help people that can't help themselves. And the way I see it, that's exactly what you're all doing here today. Being a voice for people who've been silenced. His openness right there and that honesty, that humbled me. And I couldn't help but be inspired by him and by all the Auburn PD who were there, and the Placer County sheriffs for that matter, because they were there like the rest of us were, trying to see and hear and voice and help and seeking to heal. It's time now. It's time that we as a church recommit ourselves to that work. That's the work that Jesus has laid before us, that of seeing and hearing, voicing and helping and seeking to heal our communities, our nation, our world. That's my manifesto. And the funny thing is, that's not new, and it's not really mine per se, but it sure feels new right now. And until I make it mine, until we make it our own, it will never be real. So maybe we can start by opening ourselves, as individuals, to seeing and learning about our neighbors who are people of color, to reach out, to listen, to connect, to refuse to be silently complicit any longer, but to recognize these places of privilege in our own lives. Places where that privilege is enabled by social and economic and political structures that are in place. So let us get to the work of reading and creating and listening to new perspectives and having difficult conversations and hearing stories from folks that will break our hearts and our minds open. So all these ways, these pathways of truth that have been in our midst the whole time, but maybe we've just avoided them or ignored them or otherwise just chosen not to see. And maybe it's simply because the road just wasn't paved and it looked all hard and rutted. And how are we going to navigate that? And look, that's the truth of this. It's going to be hard. It is hard. It's messy. We all know that. Life is messy. And the choice before us, all these choices that we need to make, they're difficult. But in this moment, let's not retreat from being the church. And I'm not talking about the church of business as usual, but the church that risks, that takes these risks for the sake of love. The church of courageous listening, of healing attention, of compassionate action. And that's what Jesus lived and died and rose again to show us. So that's where I'm coming from today. Where are you? One way or another, as a church, let's get on the way. Let's get on that way that Jesus has shown us. And let's do it together.